How about this?
What's
We are live. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we're going to be calling, and what BComp coined earlier today is Keeping Up with the Targaryens, Episode 1. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's introduce the wonderful people to my right. Of course, you guys know BComp all the way on the edge there. The captain, the steward of Fresh Ink. One-man walking encyclopedia. Expert swimmer. Father.
I'll take that. How about
That's
that?
true.
But also joining us today, all the way from the X-Play side, super producer Megan Lutz. Hi, Megan.
Hello. Thanks for having me to talk about my one true passion, Game of Thrones.
It's so nice to have you here. That's what I really like about working here, is that at any moment, if we need an expert in one particular thing, we have it, and they're more than willing to talk about it for 3 hours. This is a 3-hour.
Oh no.
No, you're busy. Yeah, we know. Thank you so much for joining us. Look, let's do a quick sort of expectation setting, right?
Yeah.
There's lots of shows out there that are going to give you the deep dive of Game of Thrones, House of Dragon.
All the lore.
We listen to them. We're fans of the show, but that's kind of not what we're after here. We kind of want to just have this as a place where every week, following the show, we can come to this table and just chat about last night's episode in just as fans.
Yes.
Right? Thoughts that we have. We're not here to tell you what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong. We're just going to kind of give you our point of view. And you guys have read the books, and I haven't, and so we're going to mix and match all these sort of points of view for an hour, hopefully hour-ish every week. Does that sound fun?
I think it sounds awesome.
Yeah.
And we obviously we're doing it from our new bullpen. I mean, you're going to see. Look, this part of me is I'm a little anxious because at any moment you're going to see somebody walk by. They're going to be doing weird stuff. But also, you may get a Leffler that walks by who just pops in, gives his opinion, pops out. That's kind of what we're striving for here, is a very loose format. Honestly, this is kind of what it's like just to be sitting and working here on any particular day. We just happen to turn a camera on and put some microphones in.
Yeah, we had to actually refrain from talking about the episode too much before because we got to save it for the discussion.
I know. Yeah, there is a little bit of that where it's don't ask me.
Don't talk.
Save it until we're live.
Yeah.
And I hope you guys that are watching, are enjoying a little bit of the experiment that we've been doing. We had a little bit of the feed a couple days or a few days ago with Fiona. When was that?
That was on Friday, I believe.
That was on Friday. And we thought that was a lot of fun. You guys seem to really like it, so we're going to continue with the experiment. And guys, without further ado, should we talk House of the Dragon, Keeping Up with the Targaryens?
The Hot D? Yes.
Hot D.
Oh no.
Are people saying Hot D?
Believe it or not, a lot of people are, and I think it's
I believe it.
I mean, they're like, you know what? It gives us an excuse to say it. It's totally true.
So obviously we just had the episode last night, which was episode 2 premiere, but let's talk a little bit about, briefly, about episode 1. Tell me about what it's like having Game of Thrones back in your life, and maybe let's just go quickly through episode 1 before we get into last night's episode.
Megan, you're a big fan.
Yeah.
What did you think? Okay, I mean, especially coming off the finale.
Yeah, so obviously, finale, huge disappointment.
Yes.
But, oh man, it feels so good to be back in the world. So good to see all the Easter eggs. And I feel like episode 1, really, we're going through the greatest hits. We got the tourney. We got some sex position in a brothel. We are back.
I'm here for all
I'm
that.
so happy for it. It feels so good.
When that theme song kicked in, last night.
Yeah, last night's episode,
I was like, oh, I didn't know I missed this much.
Yeah, my wife accidentally, she's like, well, let's just skip that. I'm like, whoa!
Yeah.
What are you doing, honey? No, let's roll that back.
Yeah, they're in a big fight right now. You got to bring flowers.
Well, that's why
when
I
you
was
go
sleeping
home.
under the desk.
Yeah. What about you, B-Comp? What do you think of that first episode?
Kind of piggybacking on what Megan said, the finale definitely left a sour taste in my mouth. I mean, I think that I don't think there's really any fan out there who was like, oh man, that was just great. So there was, I wouldn't say a lot of expectations on the first episode, but there definitely was well, let's see. And man, it was like putting on a comfy pair of sweats. It really was. It wasn't perfect. The elastic's kind of blown out a little bit, but I'm like, oh, you know what? I do miss this.
Yeah.
I miss this a lot. And while there was a lot of business to get through in the first episode, I thought that they did a good job of reminding me why I liked Game of Thrones in the long run, you know?
Absolutely. I think that as somebody who is a more casual I haven't read the books, but I did watch week to week, you know? I feel like most people did. 10 million people watched that first episode.
Biggest premiere ever.
Yeah.
Biggest premiere for HBO. I mean, that's huge. And it felt really good to be back and watching a show that was actually really good.
Yes.
I thought it was incredible. I thought it was a more focused story. You know, part of what keeps me, I feel these are one of those shows where I feel dumb usually when I watch Game of Thrones because there's like, I always have to ask who's near me, like, okay, well, like, what's going on with these guys? Or like, who's this person again? And I feel that this is a more focused, easy to follow beginning. And then since they're starting small, I feel like I can get in on the ground floor and watch this thing build out.
Well, and I think that was even with the books, that was a big problem because there are so many different families and different, storylines kind of going on, even in the first episode. And yeah, it kind of lightly focuses on the Starks and the Lannisters. There's so much other stuff, the other Targaryens and everything else. This is like, nope, we're just following this lineage and kind of letting it spread out from there.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of how that plays out because I know we're used to sort of following multiple storylines. Will we get bored? Because there are some mentions of the other, parts of Westeros and other lords and stuff. Will we want to see them, or are we okay just kind of focusing in on this kind of smaller story? That's to be seen. Oh, by the way, producer Lena is here. She's behind the scenes. If you guys have a question for us, !Q, and it'll be a trigger to be sent right to my computer here, and I'll be able to see your questions. I'm also following along in the chat. So yeah, we're interactive today.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Unlike Fresh Ink, where we just kind of do our thing.
Yeah. By the way, Fresh Ink comes out every Friday.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Every Friday.
Yes.
She-Hulk episode 3 coming out this week. One thing I really liked, by the way, I'm just going to touch on episode 1 just real fast before we kind of get into episode 2. I like how we got one of the bloodiest scenes I can remember. I mean, usually there's some pretty devastating fights, and there's just a lot of blood in these shows, but like this childbirth scene is something that I am hanging on to.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what a tremendous sort of like opening, like high stakes scene, in a pilot episode. You have the king here who's had a prophetic dream. Now I want you guys to kind of explain kind of how Targaryens work with these dreams, because to me it seems like they are almost psychic in this way, this bloodline. But he has this dream that he has a son coming. And here it is. He's finally I believe it's made clear that he's had a few attempts. This is like their 7th attempt at a child, and he's got to kind of make a Sophie's choice of whether he keeps his wife alive or he takes the risk for his son. And it's like very vivid, like emotionally, just like very impactful. What did you guys think of that scene,
Megan?
Oh, I mean, it's brutal, and
Yeah.
they don't hold back.
No.
I know, like, there's been some controversy online about that as well. I mean,
Oh,
I
has
think
there? What are people saying? Like too
a little
much?
too brutal, and I mean,
Oh,
it's
come
Game
on.
of Thrones. There's
Yeah.
violence against women. It happens.
Of course.
But it also kind of echoes, I mean, it's something that they touch on in Game of Thrones, the original series as well, is that, childbirth is like a woman's battle.
Yeah.
And they're kind of juxtaposing it with the tourney and with all these men and their bloodlust going back
Yes.
and forth.
Yeah.
So it's kind of showing like two sides of it, and just really setting up, I mean, this whole thing, as they say in the prologue, it's about succession.
Yeah.
And it's setting up, what's at stake here as well. Because
Right.
this really just throws all of Viserys' plans off kilter.
Yeah, absolutely. Succession is something HBO does really well.
I love that show.
B-Comp, what'd you think?
Oh, in regards to the whole scene, or just in general?
No, I mean, just in general, like, did you like how they came out of the gate swinging like that?
Yeah, I definitely did. It's funny. We'll get into the second episode in a second. I actually think the second episode was a little bit better, like really solidified the groundwork. It's funny. I saw some reviews like, oh, it's C+. I'm like, did you watch the same episode?
Right.
Yeah.
But I thought the first episode was good. Yeah, definitely. There was like Megan brought up, there was sexposition, which I'm not into per se, but it's like I get it. It's Game of Thrones. That's just kind of like their
It's nostalgic.
yeah. Although it was like a surprising for as much effing as going was on, it was like there wasn't that much nudity actually. Like I was actually kind of shocked how much Matt Smith, aka Doctor Who, was dancing with that little robe. I'm like, oh, are we gonna see more of Matt Smith?
Yeah.
Or what?
Yeah, I was paying a little too close attention in that part. You know how some YouTube videos, they have that little bar graph at the bottom to
Yeah.
show you where most like attention is being spent? I
Yeah.
would love to see that for this
Oh, I'm
episode.
sure. It was
Oh,
like
yeah.
it's like the Janet Jackson scene on TiVo, you know what I mean, from the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Replayed it.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a good time to have TiVo.
Yes.
Can I ask you this question about the Targaryens, sort of the prophetic dreams that they have and
Yeah.
how that fits into the lore and what you know about that?
Yeah, the Targaryens are very superstitious, and the reason that they even are still around is because of a prophetic dream. One of their, you might know the name more than me, but one of their ancestors in Valyria.
Denise the Dreamer? Or?
I think so. In Valyria, which is across the sea, had this vision that there was going to be this great catastrophic event. So the Targaryens grabbed their dragons and they flew over to Westeros, and that's where we get Aegon the Conqueror, and they conquered everything. And everyone else who stayed in Valyria died. So there's like this great superstition there. And also with this prophecy, the prince that was promised that they reference at the end of the first episode, that really sets up everything for Game of Thrones, the sequel series as we know it.
Yeah.
Because Rhaegar, who is, spoilers, I guess, Jon Snow's father, he is so obsessed with this, and he doesn't see it with his family, with Daenerys, with Viserys. He doesn't see it there, and that prompts him to go marry Lyanna Stark, have Jon Snow. It's all because of this prophecy.
Wow. Yeah. It's fun to know all that. I think what George R.R. Martin does best is build these worlds and build the lore. He doesn't finish books, but he's really good at building these worlds out, right? And these sort of details and things are kind of why I tune in. You know, I like that stuff. It feels lived in. Like I don't know why at the wherever they have all these sort of council meetings, there's like these little like giant pool balls everywhere. But I assume it means something, and I assume like somebody has an explanation for it because none of it's like on accident. Right. Everything feels very lived in.
It's time to go to break.
Oh, we got to go to break. Okay, let's go. I didn't know we were doing breaks. We got to feed the beast. We got to feed the monster. Stick around. We've got more Keeping Up with the Targaryens coming up, and we're going to get into episode 2. And BCom's got some wild speculation about what may happen in this series. Welcome back. Keeping Up with the Targaryens, talking that hot D.
Hot D.
Guys, episode 1 introduced us to our main characters, right? These are all new people to us. We've never seen them in the Game of Thrones world. They've cast some pretty big names here. You know, Matt Smith, Doctor Who. You also have Patty Considine. I don't
Yeah,
know how you
he's-
say his name, but he's King Viserys in
Viserys,
this.
yeah.
He's great. But also, I've never seen Millie Alcock here, who plays Rhaenyra. Fantastic
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
What do we think of the people that have been cast and the characters that we've seen so far? Do you have favorites already? Do you want to see more of certain people?
Or I can-
You go first.
Well, I was gonna say the thing, and this isn't much of a spoiler, but we know some of these people are going to get recast halfway through the show, or at least in another couple episodes, because the way they're stretching this out is they're like, here's the plot points, and then we're going to jump ahead to get to the real meat. So this is almost like these first couple episodes are more like a prologue to what's about to happen. So unfortunately, the actress who plays Rhaenyra, she's great, but we know there's an older version of coming pretty quickly.
So we know that the bulk of the series is going to feature her aged up at recast?
I believe so. I
Yeah.
believe so. I think it's going to happen like in the next episode or two.
Well, great. I'm enjoying her as we have her right now. What a tremendous talent. Also, just like what a really great character. She's like very independent. She's got a sort of like I'm gonna kind of do what I want to do, but she's also like understands the role, like her role as a princess and probably heir to the throne, and but also Matt Smith.
Yeah, he's great.
So good. I mean, this guy, just looking at him, you're like, this son of a bitch. Like, he's so good, but also, like, you can see that he really cares for his little cousin.
Well, I think we'll get into that with episode 2, but I do think it's like he's not just out for himself. Yeah, he's brutal. Yeah, he's got his own way. He's got his own thought, but he's like, yeah, he is looking out for the family, I think, ultimately.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about Game of Thrones, right? Is like everyone has these nuances, and there's gray areas there. So he's not just pure evil. He has tenderness. He's supporting Rhaenyra even as she's named heir. He's messing with her a little bit, but I mean, in episode 2, she's like, "You can kill me," and he's like, "Oh no, it's okay, bye."
Yeah. We'll talk about his sort of him and Rhaenyra on the bridge there in a sec. What about this Otto Hightower? Love.
I mean, Littlefinger
this character.
2.0?
Yeah, tell me about this. Is that who we can kind of compare him to?
I would say that'd be at least for me, that'd be the argument that he's like Littlefinger of this kind of ilk. And I say that I mean more of just like the guy manipulating things behind the scenes.
He's very socially intelligent, knows kind of what to say, what to do.
Yeah, and also I think he was the hand of the king for Jaehaerys, correct? So this is like his.
This is a second go around.
Yeah, he's not new to this, and he's definitely playing it right.
He's doing a little bit of not a little bit. He is pimping out his daughter. It seems like.
He's
He
like,
straight
put
up
on
is
your
like,
sexiest dress.
Well, put on your mother. Didn't he say like put on your mother's dress?
Yeah, you know, the one.
I can't imagine how much therapy it would take to undo. Just being his daughter. But I imagine it's for good reason. It sounds like he wants to sort of like increase his house's, power. And
Well, I believe he's a second son in the sense that like he has an older brother, right?
I think so, yeah.
And the way most of Game of Thrones works, if you have an older brother, they get everything, and you're kind of left to carve out your own standing in the world. So, I mean, he's definitely manipulating things to get where he's going. Obviously, he's done decently if he's hand of the king at this point.
Yeah.
yeah, so at the end of the episode, we kind of see Matt Smith take a dragon, steals a dragon. Now, I don't know much about the different types of dragons, but it seems like he took a big one. Is there any significance in which dragons are which here? Is that the one he bonded with as a kid? Like, is that how that worked? Does he bond with a dragon as a kid?
I believe that's the implication, right? When they were saying like you get basically an egg that is placed in essentially your cradle, and you kind of bond with it that way. And that's why. Well, I mean, let's just get into the second episode real quick. That's why it's such a big deal. Like they stole Baelor, the king the heir for a day. That was his egg that was going to be bonded with him. Yeah, and it was like that was why it was such an FU to the king.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, a huge FU. And pay attention to me, please.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, right? What's going on in the Stepstones?
Oh, you mean the with all the piracy and the
so Corrales, which is he's married to the queen that never was, which is Viserys' cousin.
Yes.
Right.
Rhaenyra.
Look, and please, I may just be completely off. I have no idea. This is a real struggle for me to remember all these names. But Corrales he's sort of the steward of like their navy, so to speak.
Yeah, he's one of the other families that came over from Valeria before Valeria fell. So he's one of the Valerian families, and I think they're Valerians. I forgot how to pronounce it, but it's slightly different. But they weren't, from what I recall, they weren't dragon riders.
No, their big thing is ships. So that he's huge with like the naval team. And he really is kind of a self-made guy. Like he's the richest house in Westeros, and a lot of that is from him building himself up.
Yeah, so they kind of tease it and mention it in episode 1. I think there's a moment where he's pleading to the king that like, hey, we should do something. These guys are like throttling us down there. This could be a problem. Do something about it. Now, episode 2, we open with a bunch of little tiny teeny crabs.
Little crabby guys.
Yeah.
Little
crabs.
crabby guys. And they're feeding on the bodies of I'm assuming, which is Corrales' men, or are they the king's men?
I mean, I would assume that. Well, I mean, ultimately, if they're all under Corrales, they'd still be under the king. But yeah, Corrales' men is what I would argue.
Yeah.
So his guys are just getting nommed on. Corrales is like, what's going on? You're worried about all this. Like, you're worried about all this other kind of unimportant stuff. Meanwhile, if we lose our ships, we're
dead.
We're going to be kneecapped here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got real clear motivation here.
Well, and he says that great line, I think it's in episode 2, where it's like, he's talking to Viserys, he says something to the effect of like, there's a storm coming. Now you do one of two things. You either go around it or you head into it. But just sit there and let it come to you is going to be a problem. And I think that's kind of like almost like the theme of the show. Like Viserys is kind of like a very, I wouldn't say passive king, but he's very like reactionary.
He doesn't want to go head first into a conflict.
Yeah, I mean, like, because this has been a time of peace. Like, his father ruled under a time of peace. He's had a really peaceful reign. The most chaos they've had was with Maegor the Cruel, who is his, I think, grandfather.
His grandfather.
So he doesn't want to rock the boat too much and upend his line.
I imagine, in a time of peace, when the thought of war comes up, it's scary.
Well, especially because this is, I mean, from what I understand, this is the peak of the Targaryen rule. This is where they are at their best, essentially. And so, and I think I read somewhere, maybe I was listening to a podcast about it, they're talking about it's like, peace is when war begins. That's when people are starting to look, people are getting complacent or whatever. That's when war starts to kind of brew under the surface.
Yeah, and speaking of war, I mean, there's just so much foreshadowing here for something coming. Especially, there's a lot of, I see echoes with Game of Thrones too, because it started out in a time of peace. And there was comments from Catelyn Stark about, these men are playing at war in the tourneys or the Nights of Summer. And you see Rhaenyra kind of echoing that in this as well during the tourney. And then when she's trying to pick a new Kingsguard member as well, she's like, none of you guys have seen battle. Who's the one who's seen the most battle? Come.
The handsome fella.
Yeah, the hot dog.
The very hot man.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I see. What I like to know is like what's being foreshadowed, because to me it's all just shadow. I have no idea. Everything's just like, oh, okay, cool. That's a cool thing.
Speaking of because it was Kristen Coles, I believe, the knight, right?
Yeah.
I liked a couple things with him. One, I liked that he didn't have any bannerman. His armor was like just messed up. He's like, yep, I'm. This is all I got. And like politically, she probably should have chosen someone else.
Yeah.
But she's all, I'm looking at this realistically, and I thought that was a really cool, turn for the character.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about speaking of like Viserys and how soft of a king he kind of is being perceived as. He's got some ouchies.
Yes.
That they don't quite know how to fix. Right? They're kind of fumbling around. They're like, this is a cut. We're putting all kinds of maggots on it. Nothing seems to be working. Is this sort of like Chekhov's open wound? Like what exactly are we to expect here?
It seems like, with no spoilers, like this just really ups the stakes of him getting another, securing his heir as soon as possible.
Yes.
And watching that maggot scene, I was like, just cut off his pinky, just like amputate it.
You would rather do that than have maggots crawl on your open wound.
Yeah, because that's not going to help.
No.
We know. We have science. We know.
These guys believe in dreams. They'll think maggots are going to
Yeah, totally. And it's sad because I think it was Joanna Robinson said it best, like, or it was at least on her podcast, they were talking about how, like, science hasn't evolved much in the last 200 years between now and the original Game of Thrones. Like, okay, well, it's like, here we're gonna use maggots. Well, in Jaime's time, when Jaime gets his hand cut off, like, we're gonna boil some wine and just have you dip your hand in there. That'll take care of the problem.
Genius.
Boiled wine,
Yeah.
great.
Can we get like a cushion or something to put on that Iron Throne? It seems like that thing's the biggest threat to his kingdom so far.
Well, it definitely puts a ticking clock on him, though. I mean, 'cause
Yeah.
it's obvious that none of this is going to help, and it's going to get to the point where, yeah, he's going to die, and then that's where the real upheaval is going to come.
Exactly.
Yeah, it seems like definitely he's not in this series for the long haul.
No.
Let's talk a little bit of some of these themes. In the original Game of Thrones, incest, big, heavy, big theme. So far, I'm getting pedo vibes in this series. Now, is that on purpose? Did George R. Martin feel like he's already touched on one gross taboo and he's got to go into another in this series? Is that something that we're going to see more of? Because obviously, he's offered up a wife,
Yeah.
and she is the
Lady Lena.
Lady Lena. Shout out,
Lena.
producer Lena.
It's me.
She is a ripe old age of 12.
Yeah.
She looked like she was 8.
Yeah, I
way
was
too young.
confused. It's like it's so gross and also a little comical when they're walking through the garden together. And,
Yeah,
oh God.
yeah.
Even he got that, though. He's like, oh, so what's up? Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, because the incest is not the problem here.
No.
If you're a Targaryen.
No.
I think it's the age and also the needing to have an heir sooner.
Yeah.
And if he obviously, if he were to choose her, would need to wait a little while, hopefully.
Can you guys kind of clear this up for me? Are anyone with white hair, are they Targaryen? How's this work?
They might just be from Valeria. It
Yeah.
might be a trait from Valeria.
It's a Valerian trait?
yes.
Okay. Because that explains why different different ethnicities seem to have Corrales is like he's a
'cause-
dark-skinned man. He has white hair, but he's not technically
He's not
Targaryen.
Targaryen.
He's married
Yeah.
into the Targaryens.
Yeah.
Yeah, but his family, like I said, they came from over from Valeria before the Doom of Valeria, which we still don't really know what that was. All we know is, there was all these very rich families that were dragon riders for the most part, and then like they get a dream, and the Targaryens like, yeah, we're gonna peace out, because they weren't even a powerful family. They weren't like
No.
they were like mid tier basically. And they're like, all right, this dream, we're the hell out of here. And the Valerian family, which is Coriolis, he had already like pieced out as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're like the only, from what I recall, like the only real families that got out of Valeria before it collapsed. And so yeah, like I believe that's a Valerian trait, but I
Yeah,
could be wrong.
I think it's a signifier that they're all kind of related,
Yes.
especially for the audience.
And
too.
so when they are picking, and they want to keep their bloodline pure,
yeah, that's why there's so much incest.
there's so much incest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And compared to the sort of pedo stuff, I'll take the incest stuff
Yeah.
all day. I draw the line here.
Yeah, and I don't
On
think
that note,
that's
we should probably go to break.
yeah.
And on that note,
We will take a quick break. Remember, !Q, send us your questions, and we'll get into more of the episode 2. Keeping up of the Targaryens is what we're calling this. Be back. And we're back. We're talking Targaryens. Keeping up with the Targaryens.
Keeping
That
up
hot
with
D. We got a question here from G4 Chipper. He says, do you think Otto thought he was going to die when he had his meeting with Daemon? I felt both he and Viserys thought he wouldn't make it back alive. He's in reference to the bridge scene from episode 2. What do you guys think?
No, I don't think he thought he was going to die. I think he's too smart for that. But he is trying to, like, weasel his way in.
I don't think he thought Daemon was going to pull the WMD of a dragon right then, because then he was like, yeah, put those effing swords away now. You know what I mean? I think he thought, like, oh, this is even, we're on even footing here. That dragon pops up. It's like, oh, well, that's done.
Yeah.
And luckily, you know.
Well, yeah, let's talk about this scene because so far this has been my favorite scene in both episodes. It's set up by the, in the first episode where he finds out that Daemon calls his now deceased newborn son the heir for a day. I think is that
the heir for a day.
Yeah.
And so they have a falling out. He banishes him to the Vale. And now in episode 2, we find out that Daemon has taken up at Dragonstone, which explain Dragonstone compared to where King Viserys is. Like, is this like a condo, like a separate condo that you would have, like a beachfront property, or like what's the deal with this castle?
So I think Dragonstone is the ancestral seat of the Targaryen house. It's where they first landed, correct? When they came from Valyria. So, and that is also technically now it's Rhaenyra's seat.
Yeah.
So Daemon's trying to like mess with them a little bit, but
He's
it's
trolling. He's
also
trolling.
yeah, it's also in Game of Thrones. It's where Dany sets up shop in season 7 when she flies over. So it's really important for that family.
You'll remember, I think it's in Game of Thrones, the show, there's that big map that's a table that's basically all of Westeros. And I believe that was Aegon who had that table built.
Yeah.
So that when he was like, okay, we're going to unite the 7 kingdoms under my rule, he had basically a giant map that they could do like war planning, from what I understand. I
And
could be wrong.
that's an island. So like
Yeah.
if King's Landing is like here, I think Dragonstone is like here.
Yeah, it's to the east, I believe.
It's a
Yeah.
cool looking building. It's
Yeah.
got it's a long way up, right? Imagine if you were like a UPS driver or just somebody that had
Amazon
to get a
Prime,
message.
yeah.
Yeah.
I would be sending a lot of ravens up there. So there's this long bridge, and now we kind of have a standoff of the Daemon and his men, Daemon with his prostitute,
His
and this is their words, whore, wife. Okay, but she's not really. They're not really married yet. So
No.
it seems like he's sort of like stretching the truth a little bit as to give himself a reason to take a dragon egg, because like we talked about earlier, when there is a potential heir or when a wife is pregnant, you get a dragon and they get to put that dragon egg in the crib, and then the kid gets to bond with it, which I think is super cool, right?
Yeah.
So there's a standoff. Now you have Otto Hightower and his men, and it seems like it's a cool little verbal sparring match, but it doesn't seem to be going well.
No, and I will say that's one of my favorite scenes is just that scene between Daemon and Kristen, where he's just like, "Oh, you're Crispin, right?" And he's like, "No." He's like, "That's not my name, but you might remember me as the guy who knocked you off your horse."
Yeah,
He's
very
like,
bold move.
But then Daemon was like, "It's respect."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
hey.
Yeah, he game recognized game.
Yeah. So it kind of made me like Matt Smith's character a little bit more there. He's like, okay, this guy's just a troll. That's
He's
all
not dumb.
No, he's
Yeah,
not dumb.
no.
He's
Yeah.
just effing around at this point. Because even when like Rhaenyra walks up, she's just like, "You gonna kill me? Come on, kill me, bro." And he's like, "I'm not gonna do that."
Yeah. So at this point, in the first episode, he has his favorite, let's say, employee of the little bordello that he visited, and so now he's taken her to be his second wife, to keep up with, I guess it's old Targaryen custom to take more than one wife.
It seems like a Valyrian thing, and it's
Okay.
something that Maegor the Cruel did as well.
okay,
So it's
good
also,
to know.
and there's comparisons to Daemon and Maegor the Cruel in episode 1 too. I think Otto Hightower says he'd be another Maegor, so we shouldn't name him heir. So this is also him just kind of trying to get under everyone's skin.
Is it more of like a traditional, like conservative, like if we were gonna like, like how people used to take many wives, is that sort of like an outdated form of their history that he's sort of like bringing back in a conservative way,
I think so.
I believe so, and I think it was also to be like,
or just an excuse to like have another broad in the
I think I think he was. I really just think he was just doing to be an a-hole. Like he was like basically trying to remind remember Maegor how bad he was. I can be worse.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I think he was just more. I really do think he is just like a troll. Like he does believe like in the Targaryen line. He believes in helping the family out.
Yeah.
Because even that scene at the end when I can't talk anymore. Corrales at the end is like says some shit about his dad or not his dad, brother. His brother. He's like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Right.
He's the king still.
I can say it.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there seems to be some flexing, some posturing, and it's backed up by a tremendous dragon. Big old red guy. I don't think red guy is the official name, but he's a big old dragon. Seems much larger than Rhaenyra, who comes flying in. Very cool shot of her kind of under the clouds. I don't care how old I am. Seeing people on top of a dragon flying around will never not be cool.
It's very cool.
And it seems like this is where the budget's going, right?
Yeah.
It seems like once an episode, we're going to get a little taste. This is kind of what I also wanted to tap into is like the format of these episodes. Seems like there's a lot of like chatty, and then once an episode, we're going to get a cool moment. Whereas I think in sort of the end of the last couple seasons of Game of Thrones, more CGI, but less episodes.
Yeah.
Everything happened quicker. Are we kind of happy that we're back to a slower pace here?
Honestly, that was my biggest criticism about the last few seasons of Game of Thrones. Like, the beauty of that show was watching the Hound and Arya on horseback cutting through. It was the beauty of it was watching Jaime and Brienne of Tarth, you know, like, trotting through and getting to know them as characters. Like, when they introduced fast travel and suddenly, like, people were just there, it was like, it took away from that.
Yeah.
And, like, honestly, I would have rather have had 3 additional episodes of watching them go from point A to point B to point C, because then that's also where you could have started to establish, like, when Daenerys makes that turn as a villain, essentially,
Right.
we could have seen that built out a little bit more. Like, her dealing with stuff like, you know, you're going too far, Danny. No, I'm not. I haven't gone far enough. You know, give us those 3 episodes of that. So I welcome just the ready, you know, the witty repartee between characters and like, just like, hey, we're gonna just chill on this horse, cut down the path, you know.
So
do that
far,
stuff.
so good. Yeah, Megan, how much of the book have we gone through so far in these 2 episodes?
Like 6 sentences. The first episode is like a paragraph, and
the
then
whole first episode.
Yeah.
yeah, it's 4
Jeez.
sentences. I don't remember as far as episode 2 how
Well,
many pages, but
The bridge scene alone in the book, I believe, is like 3 sentences. It's like basically,
Yeah.
Daemon stole an egg. Rhaenyra wanted it back. Rhaenyra wanted it back. She got it back. Like, okay, that was it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
essentially the book right there.
So we kind of like this then. This
Yeah.
slower sort of build out, right?
that's what I like. I mean, at its core, Game of Thrones is just like a medieval politics show,
Yeah.
and then there's some magic and some dragons, and there's a lot left up for interpretation, especially in the book. This is based off Fire and Blood. It's kind of like a history book, and they leave a lot of things up for speculation. They'll be like, and this person killed this person, or did they? No one knows. So it really gives, I think, the creators too and the writers a chance to play and like open things up a little bit.
Let's talk about the creators a little bit. You know, Benioff and Weiss, who people skewered at the
Yes.
end of you know, the Game of Thrones series. What do we feel like they brought that maybe we're not getting here, or are we okay with having them not involved? I know that there's, I don't know, some people, I've seen some criticism where the story might be too small, you know, where there's maybe not enough of a personality. They're spending too much time inside, and it's kind of like stagnating a little bit.
Yeah.
What do you guys, how do you feel about not having them involved?
I think that where Benioff and Weiss really shine is in adaptations, and where they really got off track was when they just had rough bullet points, I think, from George R. R. Martin, and just things got really weird, and they were rushing to the end to try to move on to something else, and they ended up just tarnishing everything.
Well, and especially tarnishing their name ultimately.
Yeah.
I mean, because they had a Star Wars, they had a big. Well, I mean, I think they still have their deal with Netflix, but they had a couple other shows with HBO, and those all just went away like that. I think that if they had just handed the reins off to another team and just stayed on as like kind of like an overview EP and just say, hey, you know, Condal and Sapochnik and all you guys, you're gonna finish it out. We'll just kind of like lightly give notes, but you guys can finish it out. I think that they would have been. I think we would have had a Star Wars with them right now.
Absolutely.
You know, I do think, despite the fact that they just biffed that ending, I do agree like they are really good at adaptations. I think that some of the things we're missing from this so far is the humor, like that that Tyrion kind of character.
Yeah.
We see a little bit of it with, like I said, between Matt Smith and Kristen Cole, like that kind. But we want more of that. You see a little bit of it between Rhaenyra and Rhaenyra when they're like looking over, the side. But you want more of
It's
that.
a little stuffy
Yeah.
right now. It does
Yeah.
need a little bit of levity, and that's part of what Tyrion
100%.
brought. I mean, it was just I don't know. It seems a little like up its own asshole, just a little right now.
I think that and Megan, you can go back and forth on this one, but I think like this is like the prologue to all of it, though. And I feel like we're like, hey, we need to get all this exposition out. Like, there's already a prologue in front of the prologue. There was like even like a little text like, hey, 172 years ago, this is what happened. But I think they are doing this to set everything up so when we start really getting into the meat of the story, it's like we're not like, what are they talking about? Like Alicent, for example, we know that she's engaged to Viserys now, but like that obviously is now going to be a rift between her and Rhaenyra, and so Rhaenyra. I always get
Rhaenyra.
Yeah, Rhaenyra.
Yeah.
But it's like, but we at least got a chance to see them for a couple episodes, be friends, and like, hey, we're in this together. And now it's like when there's like probably going to be a rift down the line, we know, hey, they were friends at one point.
That face when your best friend becomes your stepmom.
Exactly.
That's a great scene.
Yeah, I do think it's a lot of table setting, and it is focused right here, but it's already expanding outwards.
Yeah, I'm excited to kind of see where it goes, and especially not having read the books. And this is a good question because not only does this show kind of have to be made to satisfy people that have read the books potentially, but have also seen Game of Thrones. But here's a question from Lucas Wordcraft. It says, how do you feel about the show's accessibility to viewers who may not have watched the OG Game of Thrones? Do you think this show can stand on its own at all?
I think so. I look at this as kind of like Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Like if you had seen Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul has so many more layers. But if you just come into Better Call Saul, like you, for the most part, can get it. You're like, I understand where it's going on. The same thing with this. I think if you haven't seen Game of Thrones, you can walk and it's like, okay, there's a bunch of political infight, especially because they are so narrow initially, like focusing on the Targaryens and kind of going out from there. I will say, like the Game of Thrones, especially in the books, it's so sprawling at times it becomes almost like too much.
Yeah.
Beep, beep. We gotta go to our last break.
Oh, we're doing beep beeps now, huh?
Beeps for breaks.
Okay, well,
been
let's
doing
go
it
to
the
our
whole
last
time.
break. We'll come back. We'll get into some wild speculation, maybe what we can expect in the series coming up. And, and a couple more questions. So we'll be right back. Don't move. lie and say that. We're back. We're keeping up with the Targaryens.
Yeah.
We're almost
Yeah.
done
Yeah.
here. I want to thank Megan again for coming out. Before you go, yeah, what's up?
I just wanted to understand, like,
Yeah, what's up?
is this like your set now?
Oh, because you use this for the feed, this set?
Yeah, like this is my set.
Oh, I think this is kind of just going to be like our general set when we want to do these quick things.
Really?
Yeah. Is that...
Because I don't think we really talked about that.
Oh.
I just thought we were just gonna use this for the feed.
Oh, interesting. No, interesting because whose idea was it to do it from here?
Oh, that's just so interesting.
That's actually so
That's
interesting. Because
I
was
don't
it
think
my
was.
idea? I think because I was on that call and I was like, maybe it'd be cool to do the bullpen as a backdrop.
You kind of wanted me to do it in the vibe check.
No, that wasn't me. That was
This is
somebody else.
awkward.
Sorry.
I
Anyways, do you have
haven't
anything
tried
Game
it.
of
I haven't
Thrones
seen any
related?
branding on
Actually,
here,
I don't
but-
have
What's your
any
quick thoughts
comment.
on episode 1 and 2?
Episode 1 and 2 have really good.
Thank you so much for doing this. We can keep this in the video since she commented officially on Game of Thrones. Thank you so much for being here. Guys, wow, that was really awkward. So awkward. Whew. Okay, well, let's just get past that.
Whew.
Yeah.
We'll pick it up from there.
Yeah, Megan, before we go, I know you got tons of meetings to get to, and thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
What can we expect moving forward? Do you have any wild guesses? I know you've read some of the book, but this show seems to be going at kind of a slower pace than maybe what the books started out as. Any thoughts and ideas?
I don't know. I
Tasty
mean,
morsels?
I know that there's going to be a lot of riffs. I'm excited to see dragons fighting. I'm excited to see lots of, I don't know. I don't even really fully know what to expect. I'm like really enjoying the ride, and
Right.
I'm excited for some.
It's fun to say. We're enjoying the ride, right? And like
Yeah.
I think just as anyone who was so let down by the Game of Thrones series in general, like it's so crazy that we're back to a show that we're actually enjoying.
Yeah.
You know. Okay, quick question.
Yeah.
And then I'll let you go.
Okay.
Okay, I know you're handcuffed. I'll get the key and I'll unlock the handcuffs.
Thank you.
This is from Mutant ING. He says, how do you feel about the buildup of the crab feeder in comparison to, say, the White Walkers or the Wildlings as an antagonistic entity outside the realm, quote unquote?
He looks cool as hell.
He looks crazy.
Yeah. I'm so excited.
He's going to be the big bad for season 1, I would imagine, right?
Probably,
Yeah. I liked it. I like the look. I like the feel. I like, that there is some kind of presence beyond, the sort of BS that happens within the chambers and all of that. And that's what was nice about the White Walker kind of thing, was that there was always that threat down the road.
Yes.
And I like that idea that we need, and that was what I was worried about. I was like, what are we going to have as an outside threat? It can't just be all inner politics and bickering. There's got to be something that's got to either unite or bring people together or whatever, and I'm glad that they have that. Also really cool look.
Yeah.
It is such a cool look. The visual of all the crabs.
Yeah.
I'm a crab eater.
Okay.
I'm sorry out there to all the vegans. I love a crab.
Yeah.
And those crabs look well fed.
Yes.
In a world in 2022 where we're overfishing, it's nice to see a creature like the crab proliferate in such a way on this show.
Real quick before we go, do we want to see any like Easter eggs too? I mean, we've been kind of getting hints of it to the original Game of Thrones, but could there be things like Melisandre? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the Red Priestess from Game of Thrones. We know she's like 300 or 400 years old.
Something like that. She is old.
She's at least 200 years old. I think she's
Yeah.
400. So
I think
there's
so.
there's a world where the Red Priestess could show up in this, as a Game of Thrones.
Oh, that wildly attractive woman from the original
The necklace,
series,
the necklace,
who, when she took the necklace off, turned into
otter lady.
I still would.
Yeah, it's
So
a
what-
real shining moment.
Yeah. All right, Megan. Well, I want to thank you so much for our, lovely discussion of House of the Dragon. This is our first episode of Keeping Up with the Targaryens. BCom, thanks for setting all this up. If you guys like what you've seen today, if you want to see more, if there are other shows,
Yeah.
potentially, we have this set up here. to do just this kind of stuff, which was my idea, not Fiona's. And we are, we want to talk to you guys about the stuff that you're interested in. Obviously, we're going to be talking about more of this. We have She-Hulk coming up. What are you working on right now? What can we watch you on next? Or it's something you're producing?
Please watch God of Work. It's on the Completionist
Yes.
YouTube channel. It's a X-Play 6-episode sketch series. It's all dropped as one season. It was on Linear last night. Just watch God of Work.
That's great. Definitely watch it. It's really well done. Proud of you guys. B Comp, anything special?
Just watch Fishing, please.
Please.
And Attack of the Show.
Attack
Watch
of the
the
Show's
main.
fine.
Okay.
Attack of the Show comes back this week, yeah, but also Fresh Ink is on Friday. All right? And on behalf of producer Lena,
Thank you, Lena.
Thanks, Lena.
who is older than 12 years old.
I'm maybe double 12.
Maybe.
Maybe.
We
Oh,
won't
yeah. Maybe.
confirm.
I kind of forget.
And B Comp and Megan, I'm Kassem. We'll see you next week. Wow.